After completing the entire star chart, including mission nodes hidden behind quests, you can unlock the Steel Path. This is star chart hard mode, boosting levels by 100, further boosting enemy hit points, and spawning large numbers of enemies alongside intermittent acolyte mini-boss spawns. If you're new to Steel Path, this can seem utterly daunting. However, with a few simple principles you can apply to your weapons and warframes, you'll sail through in no time. I'm Nick Engineer, let's solve a practical problem. The very first node on Steel Path is Earth's E Prime, a Grineer Exterminate mission at level 101. Considering the star chart classically features level 40 in the Void, 50 on the Zaraman, or 55 in Outbreak's Labs, this is quite the jump. Not only that, it features enemies which can be challenging, like Nox with their overguard and damage resistance, or Hellions with their Seek and missile barrages. In order to get through this mission, and others like it comfortably, you need the defense to survive the mission, the damage to complete the mission, and the control to avoid mission failure. That last one is more for objective based missions rather than exterminate, but it's still relevant to controlling a mission's flow. As your builds become more advanced and powerful, you may find you rely less on defense or control depending on the mission objective. Let's start with your defenses because these enemies will rock unprepared tanks. Dropping into a group of enemies will see hit points melt away in seconds if done without care. Thankfully, there are a lot of ways to defend yourself. Hit point tanks attempt to resist incoming hits in full by putting sufficient hit points and damage reduction in their way. Hit point tanks tend to be more passive and less energy intensive in exchange for having a soft cap on how high level they can go. For Steel Path, you ideally should have 95% or higher damage reduction on your hit points, either shields or health, or have a way of generating obscene amounts of hit points, such as Rhino's Iron Skin or Dante's Light Verse and Triumph. Alongside that, a reliable form of regeneration is crucial. While shields can get away with passive regeneration, especially when supported by delay reduction mods, health and overguard need clear sources of recovery. Alternatively, you can tank by sheer immortality. This won't be permanent, but in many cases can be as good as permanent when set up right. The easiest example is Revenant's Mesmer Skin. While charges are active, you cannot be killed by enemy attacks. What's more, you stun any enemies not immune to crowd control who dared to attack you. Immortality is also achievable through other Warframe abilities like Valkyr's Hysteria, or through repeatedly shield gating with Brief Respite and the Augur mod set. A selection of frames instead defend through evasion. Invisible frames like Ivara or deflection frames like Zephyr ensure the attacks enemies make never reach them in the first place. For a basic entrance to Steel Path, while you get used to the other aspects involved, I highly recommend either Revenant, Lavos, Rhino, Uredi or Zephyr. All 5 rely on at most a single ability to make them very resilient and do not demand much energy management or recasting to keep that survival going. If you're comfortable paying more attention to how you stay alive, branch out into other frames you prefer to play one defensive step at a time. You probably want to save Banshee for when you're very comfortable. Next after defense is actually dealing damage. I am assuming that if you're watching this guide for tips, you do not have a Latum looking like this. Or at the very least, you might want more than one weapon in your arsenal capable of doing similar. While veteran players can take the Stug to level cap if they really want to, a big part of stepping up to Steel Path is bringing level appropriate weapons. Kuva weapons, Tenet weapons, Incarnants and high tier primes is usually where it's at. For reliable choices, consider the Kuva Nukor and Sobek, the Tenet Archiplasmor, Envoy and Plinks, or the 5 Incarnant weapons available from the Zaraman. If you're confident in your gameplay and loadout options in the circuit, the Incarnate adapters you can get there are amazing too. Even without these though, the game hands you the power to take on Steel Path from the quests you're required to complete. The Natrog Bow, the Grimoire Tome, and the Zoris Glaive are each powerful in their own right. The right weapons also need to be combined with the right builds. Prior to reaching Steel Path, your builds likely were no more invested than this. While a good spread of mods covering different stats will usually do you well, there are stronger mods to obtain. With the requirements for Steel Path met, you'll have also reached the requirements for arbitrations. This is where you can obtain a huge spike in power. This is against enemies far less deadly than Steel Path. Defensively, you can earn adaptation and rolling guard for your Warframe. Similarly, you can unlock the Galvanize mods, conditional variants of many basic mods, which offer substantially higher offensive benefits. Take for example, Galvanized Chamber, an upgrade from Split Chamber. After just a few kills, this offers a staggering 230% multi-shot bonus, up from Split Chamber's 90%. In other words, your damage and status output with this one mod upgrade is over 70% higher. If you don't want to get your own arbitration mods, store-bought is fine. Trading with players is a basic staple of MMOs, and Warframe is no different. Picking up your choice defensive and galvanized mods this way will be a huge boon. Likewise, now you have access to Steel Path, you'll start picking up steel lessons from fights with acolytes or completing the daily incursions. Incursions are a reliable source of steel essence, a good way to unlock later planets nodes, and to have a high chance of finding other players for your public squad. The steel essence you get can buy primary and secondary arcane adapters from Teshin. These will open up the use of various arcanes, most notably primary and secondary arcanes from the acolytes themselves. Again, farm them if you choose, or trade them from other players as they're very affordable. The arcanes can be applied to all eligible weapons with basically no downside, making for a worthwhile investment. Each acolyte arcane at full power is a 360% pure damage boost, among other features. For comparison, Serration maxes out at 165% and Hornet Strike at 220%. Even alongside those staple mods, that's over double your original damage. In combination with the Galvanized Chamber upgrade, rifles using Serration and adding a Steel Path Arcane will be hitting around 4 times as strong as before, more than counteracting the Steel Path hit point modifier and cutting into that level jump. Precision weaponry can go even higher with a 30% headshot bonus from primary or secondary deadhead and the Galvanized Scope and Crosshair mods. This will help make up for the higher enemy count you'll be dealing with in these missions. Okay, by this point you're picking up more powerful weapons, investing into direct upgrades to their output, and running with a defensive Warframe that can withstand the enemies, while you're getting used to this new level of playing. It's time to bring in control and support improvements. Controlling enemies is a big part of defense in general. Enemies which are controlled, that is to say they're stunned, bound or otherwise hindered, are dealing less damage and are therefore a lower threat. You should look to using your Warframe's abilities to assist in this. All 5 of the original recommendations I gave can provide control. Revenant can enthrall enemies to bring them to his side, creating mass distractions. Distracted enemies are not shooting at you and not countering your objectives. Lavos can irradiate enemies to turn them on each other or slow and freeze enemies to stop them in their tracks. Rhino can stomp enemies into long ragdoll animations, letting you focus the control immune Xmas enemies. Uradia and Zephyr both can scoop up enemies into groups, incapacitating them and making them easy pickings. Where you're using control to make missions easier, make sure you have energy enough to support it. Energy Nexus is a very accessible mod by the time you've reached Steel Path, providing energy over time to help keep your kit running with some efficiency modding without relying on other conditions. Likewise, you can support your energy with Equilibrium and a companion using Synth Deconstruct, or Xenaric's Wellspring with sufficient focus earned such as via the circuit. Or run Lavos. For the static mission types of interception and defense, if you've reached sufficient damage to handle Xmas units in a timely fashion, I recommend bringing in Vauban or Cora. Their 4th abilities can lock down multiple locations at once for a long duration, allowing you to hold out as long as you need to get the job done solo. You can check out my Cora and Statstick guides for more on her specifically. Which lastly brings us to the support buffs. Sufficient damage is doable with single weapons, but becomes an absolute breeze when combined with support abilities and primers. Warframe abilities like Roar are an easy win to enhance your damage, innate to Rhino and subsumable onto other Warframes as desired. You can also use Eclipse for its offense and defense options, Breach Surge for the control and damage amplification, Nourish for the viral boost and energy sustain, Ensnare for control and grouping, or Silence to disable stronger enemy abilities. When choosing a Helmith ability, you need to be looking at what you are weakest against and filling that gap. As for status primers, they are weapons used not to deal damage, but instead to set up an enemy to receive a lot of damage from another source. The Epitaph, Kuvanukor, Tenet Cycron and Cedo are all exceptional primers. By applying a lot of status effects to an enemy, you can both sunder their defenses and make them very vulnerable to a set of Galvanized mods I've conspicuously not mentioned until now: Galvanized Aptitude, Shot and Savvy. These mods, and their melee counterpart Condition Overload, grant a significant boost to damage for each additional status effect on the target enemy. You don't have to apply these yourself though. Companions can apply status effects in various ways, from abilities like Diriger's Arc Coil and Panzer's Viral Quills, to the companion's weapon or innate attacks. Allowing your companion to set the enemy up, then knocking them down yourself, is a reliable method to break through their defenses. Employing all of these suggestions at once, we're on Steel Path Disruption against the Murmur, using Lavos wielding a Kuvenu Core, Naturuk, Worm Prime with Verglass. Against such a setup, a Necromech Demolisher stands no chance. Because you see, Steel Path isn't some insane wall of difficulty. Right now, maybe you're struggling on Steel Path. Previously, you may have struggled with Sorties, and previous to that, you may have struggled with Saturn as a very new player. Each time the difficulty ramps up, you find more mods, build stronger weapons, invest more endo, and reach a new level of power. Steel Path is just an extension of that. Once you're comfortable with the basics of this tier, you can diversify into the many terrifyingly strong options we have these days to obliterate our opponents and look fancy while doing it. Remember, even if it turns out you did it wrong and don't have the gear for a mission, the worst case scenario is the mission fails. You lose a few minutes and gain valuable insight into what to change next. So, grab your Zoris, or your Naturok, or your Riven modded Torrid Incarnon, and become the lore-accurate Warframe you know you can be. If you'd like to see more in action live, come join me on Twitch with the link in the video description. That's all from me for now, so as always, grab your gear, have no fear, and fight well, Tenno.